Hey there everyone, I'm meteorologist Hannah Fink, and today we're going to be talking about something a little different. Over the weekend we fell back into a different time change. So now we are observing standard time when we were in daylight time. But a lot of people are debating on if we should stay in standard time, which is the typical one many use, especially those that don't change time or roll their clocks back or forward. So we have this graphic that we're going to go over, the changing times, what would happen if we kept standard versus if we kept daylight. So today, which is the 3rd of November, sunrise was at 6:10 this morning and sunset has begun at 5:03 p.m. But if we were still in daylight, the sunrise would start at 7:10 in the morning and the sun will set at 6:03 p.m. But let's compare with the summer solstice versus the winter solstice. The summer solstice is known as the longest day of the year. That's when we see the most sunlight. And then the winter solstice is known as the shortest day of the year because that's when we see the least amount of daylight. So the sun would rise at 5:14 in the morning and set at 7:41 p.m. during standard time during the summer solstice, but during daylight we would have the sunrise at 6:14 in the morning and the sun would set at 8:41 p.m. During the winter solstice, during standard time, the sun would rise at 7:07 in the morning and the sun would set at 6:03 p.m. And then during daylight, we would see the sunrise at 8:07 a.m. and the sun would set at 7:03 p.m. So you can kind of see the differences. Obviously, this is where you see that hour change moving forward versus moving backwards. So I have another way of explaining it on why we do this, how it happened, but what really is the science behind it, but in a simple way to understand. So let's pull up this graphic just to give another look at it while I explain this. So overall, we just fell back. The time has changed. But why do we change the clocks? Well, in the United States, we follow daylight savings time for most of the year. In the spring, we move clocks forward 1 hour, and in the fall, we move clocks back 1 hour, returning to standard time, which is what we're technically supposed to be on. Why do we do this? The original idea was to make better use of daylight, especially for agriculture, conserving fuel, and maximizing evening daylight. The concept goes back to the 1800s, but it became widely used during World War I and World War II to save energy. Think of it like shifting a meeting time. Instead of the sun rising at 5:30 in the morning when most people are technically asleep, we move the clock so that sunrise is around 6:30 in the morning instead, and we get that extra hour of sunlight after school or work. But here's the catch. We aren't gaining or losing sunlight. We're just moving the clock around to make it seem that way. So during standard time, which is typically from November to March, the clock stays more aligned with the actual position of the Earth. Noon is closer to when the sun is highest in the sky, and during daylight savings time, that takes place from March to November, we're artificially shifting time to push more daylight later in the day. And this is why evenings are brighter and longer in the summer. Mornings are darker and later in the year, especially during the transition in November. Whether we should stick to standard time or daylight savings time permanently is a topic of ongoing debate and in legislation. Some people love late sunsets. Others want brighter mornings, especially for early morning commuters to school or to work. Now, why sunlight changes through the year? We see this because of the winter and the summer solstice. Now let's talk about something bigger happening, and that is the tilt of the Earth, which is why we see these solstices. The Earth is tilted at 23.5 degrees, and that tilt is responsible for longer days in the summer, shorter days in the winter, and the winter and summer solstice. The summer solstice, which is typically around June 20th or 21st, is known as the longest day of the year in the northern hemisphere and the shortest day in the southern hemisphere. The sun reaches its highest point in our sky. We get the maximum amount of daylight, and on the summer solstice, some places, especially closer to the poles, experience nearly 24 hours of daylight. That's why places like Alaska have what's referred to as the midnight sun. During the winter solstice, which is around December 21st or 22nd, this is the shortest day of the year for the northern hemisphere and the longest day for the southern hemisphere. The sun takes its lowest path across the sky, which means daylight is limited, and some northern areas see only a few hours of sunlight. After the winter solstice, even though temperatures take a while to catch up, daylight starts increasing again. A lot of people think that the time change controls the daylight, but really the solstice and Earth's tilt control the daylight. The time change just shifts where the daylight appears on our clocks. Now, how the time changes connects to the two solstices. Here's the connection. The solstices determine how much daylight we actually get. The time change determines when we experience that daylight. During the summer solstice, the days are naturally longer because of Earth's tilt. Daylight savings time is layered on top of that to push sunset even later, typically between 8 and 9 p.m., even later in some places. Now, during the winter solstice, the times are naturally shorter when we return to standard time in November. Sunrise becomes earlier and sunset becomes earlier, helping us capture that limited daylight where it is most useful. A simple summary, just to give you a better idea. The solstice changes the daylight and the time change shifts the clock. So the next time we spring forward or fall back, remember, we're not gaining or losing daylight. The Earth's tilt in orbit handle that. We're simply changing how our schedules line up with the sun. Whether you prefer lighter mornings or longer evenings, that debate will keep going on. So that's one thing to keep in mind there. Overall, this is just the way things are right now. Certain states like Arizona and Hawaii, they don't deal with the time change. They have it where their states don't observe them. But now when the clocks change for our location, because we do observe it here in Alabama, you'll know exactly why it's happening and how it connects to the rhythm of our planet, because that overall is what changes the daylight, not the clocks. Thank you so much for being here. We'll see you tomorrow.